Welcome to the T2 Hubcast. Join Martin, Dave, Spencer and guests as they discuss all things personal and professional development. The T2 Hubcast, brought to you by the People Performance People.
So welcome to another T2 Hubcast. Me, Martin Johnson.
Me, Spencer Locker.
Spence, how the devil are you, mate?
All right, man.
It's Friday.
Right. Friday. Go on
Mate,
holiday tonight.
Where you going?
Carlisle. Cumbria, southern Scotland.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, a bit of payback. Not so much payback, but we will reverse the roles on this Hubcast.
Okay.
I think on the last one, you interviewed me.
Yeah.
You caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Which is always good. But we like those type of discussions where it's not overly scripted or planned.
Yeah.
And we just see where it goes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to do the same to you. I want to pick your brains. I want to interview you. Ask you a few questions. Who are you winking at behind me?
Claire, she's making me a coffee.
Is she? So, Spencer Locker.
Hey.
A bit of background to you that I know of.
Yeah.
You're a Halifax lad.
Well, I was born in Halifax, but I was brought up in a place called Brighouse.
Brighouse, know it well. Used to play rugby there.
Yeah. Brighouse and Rastrick.
So you're a Yorkshireman.
West Yorkshireman, yeah.
You then joined the military at an early age.
16, yeah.
16 years old, you joined the RAF.
I did.
We've always had banter about this as an ex-Royal Navy senior service. We have the Navy, the Army, the RAF, and the RAF is almost like the poor younger child. No, how do you describe it?
We look at I look at it like the Navy is the tenured, seasoned, don't take themselves too seriously, but takes the job seriously, knows when to party, senior service. And the RAF is the cheeky rascal junior service who is still finding its feet, but you know what? It is what it is. And
we'll take the banter and the incoming.
And then the army is the unloved middle child
who think that they are the best service, but I think they make the most difference. Yeah. Absolutely.
But again, that's only banter. It's
exactly.
We've got the utmost respect for the army, the Navy, the Royal Marines, the Royal Women's Balloon Corps.
Nicely rescued for the army folk out there, right?
Yeah.
So you joined the RAF.
Yeah.
16. You have a military career of about 24 years.
Yeah.
So that's a good innings, mate. Since I did 5 years and got out, so you've obviously done the full whack.
Yeah.
You've done 24 years. Although when you're in the RAF making coffee and smoking fags, it's easy to do 24 years, right? So you have a military career. Yeah. During the military career, you get an opportunity to, because you was an engineer in the RAF, but you get an opportunity to be involved in training.
Yeah.
And then you start delivering some training, but then you get spotted. It's almost an opportunistic moment where somebody's in the right place at the right time, scouting for resistance to interrogation instructors.
Amongst other things.
And sort of see you and think, he'll be good at this. You get this offer to go and learn how to be a resistance to interrogation instructor.
Well, to be selected.
Yeah,
so you've got to go an automatic thing. You've got to be selected.
And then you go through that and you end up being selected, which is a great thing to do, because you almost then start working in a different world. You start working with the special forces. You start teaching people how to resist interrogation should they be captured. Some real cool stuff. You do that in the military. You leave the military. In civilian life, you do a couple of different things.
Yeah.
You work your social work. You do some social work in South Wales with families. Family mediating. Etc. You move up to Hull.
Yeah.
You get a job doing more training from an engineering perspective, and then you join us. So there's more to it than that, but that's sort of a potted history.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the opportunity comes to work on the show SAS Who Dares Wins.
Yes. Yeah.
And SAS Who Dares Wins is a hit on Channel 4, but because of your resistance to interrogation background, you get the call that says, Do you want to be part of it?
Yeah.
We need resistance to interrogation instructors. And you've been on the show for 4 seasons.
Yes.
Which is cool as well.
Yeah.
So whether you've planned it or not, Spence, you've done some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Do you feel lucky? Is it right place,
very
right
much
time?
So. Oh, very much so. Oh, I would definitely. It's more luck than judgment on the vast majority of the time.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting people influenced me. Lots of very good people gave me opportunities. I was supported. People say you make your own luck. I sort of agree with that to a certain degree. I think that, I don't like blowing my own trumpet. I think that I've failed a lot during my life, but I've learned from those failures. But one thing that's been a constant in my life, or I like to think has been a constant in my life, is I've treated people well. I tend not to judge people. I mean, obviously, there's certain situations where if people have extreme behaviours and things like that, you've got to think to yourself, do I really want this person in my life and things like that? But I've always treated people well. I've always tried to treat people with respect no matter what position they're in. And I think that has influenced some of the luck that I've had, to be honest with you.
Well, if, people who like people, who genuinely want to be around people, that there's a lot to be said for that. And I think, you are, I would agree, you don't have to blow your own trumpet. You are in that category. People want to be around you and you're very good with people. And I guess that's probably, as well as right place, right time, that's probably what's attracted people to work with you and give you opportunities.
Yeah.
All right. So when you first, let me see if I can ask a few questions. I know you don't overly talk too much about stuff you can't talk about, which is credible and you've got integrity. But when you first started getting into the resistance to interrogation work, and you started doing it on courses with people who are going through courses for real. And just to sort of put it out there, it's not just special forces. It's anybody who is considered operating in a role where they could be captured.
Yes.
Sort of aircraft pilots or whatever it might be.
Yeah, there's all sorts.
There's all sorts of people who comes out. But you then put them through a training which hopefully simulates an interrogation, and you interrogate them within the boundaries that you can interrogate. But it's all with the aim of building up their resistance should it happen for real.
Yes.
So when you first started doing this, you're a very amiable guy. You're very peace and harmony.
Yeah.
But when you're playing that role, as people have seen on the TV, you completely transition.
Yeah.
Is it easy for you to just play the role and separate that it is a simulation?
No.
Or is it hard for you to?
Very difficult for me. I nearly failed the course. So if I can just sort of rewind back a little bit, when I started doing the course, I started doing the resistance to interrogation course. Again, it's a selection thing. It's not an automatic thing where you apply for it and you get it. You've got to go through a course, and during that course, if you don't meet the criteria, you're off ski. You're gone. You're out the door. It's not an attendance course. It is a very, very important part of.
So you're being assessed all the time.
Yeah.
Can this person play this role and carry out an interrogation to the standard we need it to be carried out?
Very much so. And this is the thing is, it's not all screaming and shouting. There are you would not believe how many different options we have for an approach. An approach is when we go and speak to somebody in a room. So these approaches, there are so many different ways we can do this, from mild to wild, all the bits and pieces in between.
And Spence, is that about reading the person? So we've got this type of person in the room. We know what pushes their buttons. We know what personality style they've got. And therefore, we're going to adopt this approach in the interrogation. Whereas we've got this other person in this separate room, and they're a completely different person, so that won't work with them.
Right.
So we've got to adjust. Does a lot of that conversation go on?
Yeah, it's not up to us. We don't make the call when we're actually doing the R2I thing. We've got it's all videoed, it's all recorded. You never go in a room with somebody when it's not recorded.
Yeah.
So for lawful purposes or legal purposes, for all the good stuff, it's all recorded and it's all observed. So you have people watching you do what you do, who do also do what you do, but are very much experienced, tenured, and all this, that, and the other. So they're observing this and they're watching this, and what they do is they will put together a sort of a strategy, if you like. But the thing is, the whole point of us doing it is to be able to help people who could be in this situation for real, experience a myriad of different approaches. So going back to when I was go on.
So yeah, so your point being is, if all you do is shout and scream at them, then they're going to become resistant to that type of interrogation.
Yeah.
But if it happened for real and that wasn't the interrogation, it was a nicey, try and get you on side, manipulation type interrogation, then they wouldn't be ready for that. So you've got to, what you're saying is you've got to hit them from all angles
and give them a good experience,
so they know how to navigate those situations.
And again, this is something that a few people seem to misunderstand. The point is not to break these people. It's not the point at all. It's to take them up to the point where they're almost getting to the point of breaking, but not breaking them.
So let me ask you a question about mindset. We do a lot on performance psychology. As you know, it's the essence of what we do, and we're trying to get all we're trying to do here at T2, and we always reiterate this. We're not trying to give people like revolutionary moments or completely change them as a person. It's not about that.
No.
What we do is we try and get them to realize and identify the person they are.
Yeah.
But then instead of just operating unconsciously, just bring some things into the conscious that may serve you well or make you more productive or whatever it might be. That's what we're about.
Yeah.
So when you've done all these interrogations, you've seen a multitude of people under certain stresses and pressures, etc. From a mindset perspective, is there a couple of things that when you start engaging with somebody, you know they're going to be strong, or you know they've got the right kind of mindset? And what is that? Is it people who, for example, who are calm, who are more logical thinkers than emotional thinkers? You know, is it not as simple as and binary as that? I mean, is there anything that what you observe from a mindset perspective that puts people in a position where they can resist interrogation, they can remain calm, and they don't crack under the pressure?
Right. When we start talking about mindsets like that, we're talking about adaptability, being able to read a situation and act accordingly.
Right. Is that emotional intelligence then?
It is emotional intelligence, because, again, all the stuff that we talk about here, we talked about when we're doing R2I. So when we start talking about the brain chemicals, when we start talking about the chimp, when we start talking about fatigue and how it affects you and how it affects your perceptions and things like that, we talked about that when we're doing R2I. So, I mean, morning...
What's R2I?
R2I, resistance to interrogation.
Right. Sorry,
So basically, the morning that we do here isn't a million miles away from what we did with resistance to interrogation.
Really?
Because there's all these things that we all do, the way we act, the way we react, the way we adapt or don't adapt. We all do it, and we all know we do it. But when we get in here and we understand why, we start talking about the chimp, we start talking about the human, we start talking about the brain chemicals and how that affects us. We start talking about adrenaline and why this adrenaline's kicking off. And we manipulate those during the practical phase. We manipulate those chemicals. We manipulate your perception. That's why when you watch it on TV and you see people actually hanging out their arse because they're tired, they're on the chin straps, for want of a better expression. They're tired, they're fatigued. Well, everybody knows that when somebody's tired, somebody's tired because they snap, because they act irrationally, because they act emotionally and in the moment. Because you're tired, because you haven't got the wherewithal to be able to emotionally deal with that situation.
And the same with hunger.
Yeah, and hunger.
Which is, So it's before interrogation, it's why you make them have a lack of sleep for a day or two and you don't feed them.
Yeah.
So by the time they reach their interrogation, they're already fatigued physically and mentally.
Right, we do feed them and we do give them water. But the thing is, it's a minimal amount. It's just to keep them going. And you've got to bear in mind that it's not just a case of not letting them sleep. It's actually sending them out and getting them ragged up and down a hill, getting them out and doing something. For 24 hours beforehand, they are pushed to the limits.
And the reason you do that, Spence, is because in a real life situation, they're good. If they're captured, they're going to be fatigued and under stress and anxious and malnutritioned and all this. let me just make a link on something and bring it back to what we do. You said something. I asked you a question about what you observed during this extreme process of interrogation around the people who have the strongest mindset versus the ones who don't. And instantly you said adaptability.
Yeah.
They have the wherewithal and the emotional intelligence to recognize how to play the situation rather than just unconsciously responding emotionally to how they feel.
Yeah.
And you've seen it on the show, the ones who answer back, the ones who blurt out something without thinking about it. And you see the ones who behind their eyes, it's like a clock ticking. Oh, it's this guy again.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's the lady this time, and she's much softer, so I can maybe strike up a bit of rapport with this person. It's the person who's adapting constantly to what's going on and buying themselves time.
Yeah.
And you know, some people say to us in our line of work, Martin, I love all this situational leadership and this social chameleon stuff, and the fact that you've got to know who you are, but slightly adjust to get on with another person. But isn't that fake? That's the question they always ask. Is that not fake? Are you not being yourself? And I say, no, it's smart, because you've got to realize, the moment you realize that not everybody is the same and you're not like everybody else. If you're steaming through life just being you without budging, you're going to be a hit with some people and you're going to get it badly wrong with others. Whereas if you adapt and morph to build rapport and to collaborate, that's the trick, right?
You're establishing credibility, because there are fake people out there. You know, when they say, right, well, we want you to, what you need to do is you need to adapt and this, that, and the other. You'll know these people out there watching this podcast, really listening to this podcast, will know that there are people out there who will do the adaptability, but it will be fake. So you'll spot them.
Yeah.
But there's other people out there who do it that you don't realize, because they're credible.
That's the
because
key.
it's the credibility. It's that it's not, you're not making a conscious decision. I believe this person really means it. It's just there. It is.
It's a key thing you've just said there about, if you think somebody is manipulating or doing it for their personal gain, then they probably are, because you've picked it up.
Yeah.
If you don't realize it, then they're not, because you shouldn't realize somebody's doing it. Now, let's talk about the dark triad.
Okay, yeah.
So how do you spot between someone who is manipulating versus somebody who is sincere and they're just adjusting to the opposite style so they can build rapport and collaborate?
Yeah.
Well, there's a thing in psychology called the dark triad. We speak about it all the time.
We do, yeah.
Narcissists, Machiavellian, and psychopaths.
Yeah.
And there's a wiring in the brain. There's a lack of empathy. Their emotional brain is not wired like others. There's lots of scientific reasons why these people become narcissists, Machiavellians, or psychopaths.
Yeah.
However, this is the stark difference. In many guises, the dark triad can appear charismatic, can appear to adapt. In fact, they adapt very well.
Yeah.
Right? They can become the social chameleon. They can enchant and charm.
Yeah.
And that's how they lure people in to be able to then take advantage or manipulate. And the number one thing there is they're doing it for their own personal gain only.
Yeah.
It's like, I know that if I do this, if I act in a certain way with Spencer, then I'm going to get what I want.
Yeah.
And that's what the dark triad do very well. Whereas socially excellent people and people who adapt to their environment and their surroundings and slightly adjust are doing it for mutual benefit.
Yeah.
Because hopefully it will benefit me, but it will also benefit you and us together.
Yeah.
And we will collectively drive an outcome or get to a certain point. And that's the difference.
Yes.
And, you know, I guess coming back to your point, what you see in people who are going to do well during stress and an interrogation are those who are themselves, but they're willing to adapt slightly.
Very much
to
so.
build that rapport, that mutual connection.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones who get defensive fail. The ones who fight you fail. The ones who sit there and say nothing and just withdraw fail.
Yeah.
It's the people in the middle ground that buy themselves the time. Is that right?
And if you ever watch the programs, and I tell you who's really good at it, Jay's really good at it. When you Jay's one of the other interrogators.
He's the big guy on the show.
Yeah.
He shouts more than you, right?
Well, yeah, sort of, yeah. But what Jay's really good at is playing unhinged and unfair. So if
That's
you
right.
ever watch the Moroccan one, when we did the Morocco and we were pitching people against each other, and he was saying, pick somebody. Why?
That's right. Yeah.
Why? No, I'm not saying why. Pick somebody, and you've got no idea because it's all it's all stacked against you. No matter what you do, it's going to be wrong.
Well, this is the question I was going to ask you. In that sense, what is the right thing to do? Because if you don't pick anybody, you've got integrity and you're not throwing someone under a bus.
Yeah.
But if you pick somebody, you're sort of following, you're keeping the interrogator happy.
Yeah.
But you're throwing your mate under a bus.
Yeah, but the interrogator can then manipulate that. So if you pick somebody, it's like, well done, thank you very much, you've got some balls. Or it could be, what are you doing, man? You've just thrown your guy under the bus. Yeah. So no matter what you do,
you lose.
You lose. But the thing is, you don't know that. You don't know because you're fatigued.
It's a real test of the mind, isn't
very
it?
Much so, yeah.
Even those people who are doing well, who are trying to find the middle ground and adapt and all the rest of it, even that type of scenario is going to throw your mind because you're thinking, do I, don't I?
Yeah. Ooh. And that's what it's all about because, again, when you sort of sat there on your settee watching it and you've got your Pringles and you're going, oh, I'd tell him to F off, I would. Oh, I'd do this
if I was on the show. Yeah.
But you're bearing in mind that they've done 14 days of being run ragged and looking over the shoulder. So they're already fatigued before they go out on the final exercise.
So what's the aim of it, Spence? If for people out there who are not in the special forces, they're not aircraft pilots and they're not going to be captured, right?
Yeah.
What I really want to draw out of you in your own mind is putting them through that process is designed not to break them. It's designed to build them, to build resilience and character. And you know what? In everyday life, in the workplace, in our personal life, we could all do with building a bit of resilience.
Yeah.
I mean, everything we talk about in challenge and threat state and social media and how we're fed fake news and threat state triggers left, right, and center.
Yeah.
What is, if there was anything you could pick out of it, out of the whole process, that people could maybe take on and listen to? I know this is a really trick question and I'm putting you on the spot, but what would it be? What's the aim of it and what can we take away from it?
Trying and failing and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes and being a better person for it. Because again, we've talked about this many, many times. Life seems to be, after post-education, life seems to be about putting people down so that you can get up. And it's not helping people up so you can get up. We can't collaborate. But people will try something and fail and never try it again. Or maybe they can feel that they're going to fail so they won't try it because failure is seen as a bad thing. When actually it's part of learning. If you don't make mistakes, you don't make anything. You either win or you learn. Yeah? So it's taking those lessons and learning from them and going, you know what? I tried that. It didn't work. I failed. So how can I succeed next time? And how can I build from that? Yeah. Because that's what resilience is. Resilience is basically failing and then coming back stronger.
And therefore building the confidence to, like coming back to the podcast we did last time where you was asking me about taking risks.
Yeah.
And I was going, what's the worst case scenario here, etc. It's then the more you do that, the more you realize it's not a catastrophe. The world hasn't ended.
Yeah,
I got a bit of a shoe in there or a bit of a bollocking or, that didn't feel too great.
Yeah.
However, I'm still breathing.
Yeah.
I'm still pushing forward and we go again. And it's the same in business, isn't it? You have a bad month. So what? You had 2 great months the time before.
Yeah.
Back on the horse and go again.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is we need to, certainly for the generation coming through as well, our kids, we need to put them in that challenge state where they're not afraid to have a go. They're not afraid to try things without the overwhelming fear of consequence or how they're going to look or what this might mean.
And we need to look at that and we need to educate people to, when people fail, rather than pointing at them and going, ha ha, they've failed, or actually go, well done for trying.
Or Spence, even if they don't do that, rather than going, oh my God, you failed, that means you can't do X.
Yeah.
Because this is the classic one in education. Some parents mean well, but they say to their kids, if you don't get your grades, you won't be able to go to university.
Yeah.
Straight away, the child is in threat state because they're thinking, all of a sudden now, the world is on them grades. Whereas if you rewind that and say, listen, whatever your grades, you will do your best and it would be great to have them. But whatever the grades, you will have a path.
Yeah.
There will be an opportunity to go forward. Challenge state, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, coming back to your point, it's not when people fail all about people going, ha ha, you failed. Some people do.
Yeah.
Kids generally, right?
Yeah.
It's also about not overemphasizing or catastrophizing the outcome of failure.
Yeah.
Which I think parents, teachers, employers, we do all the time. The sales director who walks into the room and goes, we must not miss target this month.
Yeah.
Threat state.
So if I can rewind a little bit to an earlier
Yeah.
question, and you said, do you find it easy to do what you do?
Yeah.
And I said, no. Going back to when I was on my course, interesting fact, by the way, when we were on the course, we're all in syndicates, and each syndicate had a syndicate leader. And my syndicate leader, the guy who was actually sort of mentoring us through and all that, was the guy who was the umpire.
On the show?
On the show, yeah.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah. He was my mentor. He was
so you knew him back from your training?
Yeah. But we're going through that training, going through that course. He took me into one room and he basically said, look, Spence, I'm not being funny, but that wasn't what we want. Where we're talking, it was a harshing session.
So you think you're pushing yourself to be harsh.
Yeah.
He's taking you in a room and going, you're nowhere near the level. We need you to up your game.
Yeah.
We need you to be more harsh.
Yeah. And if you don't put, and it's 3 strikes and you're out, and you've already had 2 strikes. So basically, him giving me a little bit of a pep talk and said, right, you've got to go back in that room and you've got to harsh that fella. You've got to harsh him. And
harshing is just being aggressive.
That's
it's in your face.
One-way conversation. It's full on. It's maximum volume, spite, vicious, the lot, but without physical.
Yeah.
So I went in that room, and that was me in a challenge state, because I'm like, right, I'm going to do this, because when I succeed, when I do this, then I'm on the rest of the course, and I'm just so close to finishing the course and being the guy.
And once you did it and you pushed yourself to your max and you did your first full harshing experience, when you came away from that, did you feel like adrenaline and reward, or did you feel uncomfortable?
I vomited blood, mate. I was absolutely full on. Yeah, because I was screaming at this guy. It was absolutely 100%, 110% full on in this guy's face for 10 minutes.
But did you, once that had settled, did you feel a buzz and a fulfillment, or did you still feel uncomfortable because it wasn't natural to you?
No, it took me, no.
A bit of both.
No, I've got the buzz. I didn't feel, because I'd done it, I thought, I can do it now. I get where it is. I got the psychology. I got the fact that, I have to take myself to a certain place to be able to do that to somebody. I understand it has to be done. It's not something I'm natural at doing. There's other approaches I excel in. I'm pretty good at,
but it's part of it.
But yeah, you've got to at least do the harshing, and So I got a buzz. I know where I've got to be when I've got to do this. When I've got to put myself in this particular position, I know where I've got to go to be able to produce that in my head.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Right. Couple of minutes left, Spence. I've really enjoyed that. I think it's a fascinating insight. There's some stuff that's come out in this conversation. We've worked together for 2 years nearly that we've never spoke about.
Right.
But just sort of finishing off with one or two things that you've picked up along the way that you sort of would want the listeners to take away from this in terms of your journey through working in the forces, resistance to interrogation, etc. What would it be? You've talked about failure and embracing it and going for it and not being afraid and reframing that. Anything else?
It's being honest with yourself, credibility, being honest with the people around you. That helps resilience, because you've got to, when you're honest with yourself, you can actually break your own limitations. Because people put their own boundaries, put their own limitations in life. Yeah. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that. I couldn't possibly do that.
And then they justify. Why not? They justify why they reframe and justify rather than just being honest and saying.
That's right. Yeah. You know what? If I'm honest, I could give that a go and I could fail. But at least I've given it a go. At least I've tried. I've put my hardest in.
And what's the worst that can happen?
Did anybody die?
Is that the famous saying from
Hangover, isn't it?
Hangover, yeah, Mr. Chow. Yeah. Spencer Locker, that was fascinating. Thank you for your time, mate.
Thank you.
It wasn't too uncomfortable for you. Hopefully I think some people will take some stuff away from that. So yeah, that'll do us for this Hubcast, and we will be back again, without doubt, with another T2 Hubcast.
Thanks, mine.
Thanks, Spence.